Welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast, the photo imaging industry's leading news source. Here's your host, Gary Pageau.
The Dead Pixel Society podcast is brought to you by Photo Finale, Media Clip, Advertech Inc., Got Photo, IQ, Photobook AI, the RPI Member Network, and MailPix. Hello and welcome to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. I'm Gary Pageau, and today we're being joined by Rick Bellamy, the CEO of RPI. Hi, Rick. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Gary. Thank you. How are you?
I'm well, doing great. Well, our RPI has been in the news the last couple of weeks because of some acquisition news. And we thought we'd get on the horn with Rick to talk a little bit about that, about the photo printing side of the industry and some of the directions it's taking. So, Rick, can you at first tell us a little bit about RPI as a company? It's been around about 40 years. I think there's a lot of people who know of the company as one of the larger white label printing suppliers, but you can kind of share some of the history of the company?
Yeah, absolutely. The company was started in 1979 by Barry Reichling in a response to a gap in the market around the production of legal documentation in particular, and was an early adopter of digital printing when you could get any color you wanted as long as it was black.
Right.
About 99, Barry's son, Ted Reichling, came back to the business after a stint in the prosecuting attorney's office and came up with an innovative solution to allow people to upload photos and create a personalized notepad, which is an early photo application.
Sure.
And named a website in which they sold that, iPads.com, which was a name I made fun of until Apple released a product of that type. And so that was very successful. By 2006, the company had figured out how to create a mass customization platform that allowed them to produce one-off product under scale. Mm-hmm. And in doing so was servicing a lot of the photo industry as a private label provider. So they ended up selling off the commercial side of their business and really just focusing on manufacturing of the personalized print products. Today we span locations all over the world with owned locations in Eindhoven, Atlanta, Rochester, New York, Boise, Idaho, Seattle, Washington, and now with this acquisition, San Francisco, California. And we also have a global distribution platform which can directly integrate with any digital system in the world. Never found one that we can't integrate with, and accept orders and route that digital content to the best place in the world to produce almost any personalized product, from apparel to gifting items to the flat printed products that are produced in our internal facilities.
So does that does that have to be part of your network, or can third parties be a part of that?
We carefully choose our production partners strategically. Sure. And make sure that we are managing the quality and the service delivery times very carefully. And then we work with our partners as well to help them to improve their productivity, along with, as we learn to do so as well ourselves in manufacturing these personalized products.
So the news is, of course, that you've acquired Blurb, which was one of the largest self-publishing platforms, not only photo books, but magazines and novels and personal publishing of all kinds, some wall decor and some other items. And you had a relationship with them actually going back to 2005.
Yes, we're really excited to be adding Blurb into the RPI family. So, and yes, as you mentioned, Gary, Blurb and RPI have been partners since 2005 when Eileen Gittins, the founder of Blurb,
Yep.
had the concept that making a professional quality book shouldn't be so hard, and you should be able to just make one.
Right.
Uh, so,
It's crazy,
and
isn't it?
she came to Ted Reichling, and the rest is history. We've been a strategic partner with them every since, and today we produce a vast majority of their print volumes, and so for us it was a natural fit.
Sure.
As as you mentioned, a big part of their customer base is the creative professional, whether that's an author or whether that is a photographer or whether that is a designer producing marketing materials. The
Sure.
vast majority of their users are in that creative professional space. But it made sense for us as an acquisition.
Had you already
pull
been
that into the
servicing
family.
those type of clients before, the sort of creative professional space, through some of your other customers, or is that sort of the growth potential you see?
Yes and yes. So we produce for both B2B and B2C markets. And a big focus of ours over the last several years actually has been growing in those B2B market segments.
Right.
So business products, marketing materials, as a way to drive personalization into those markets.
Right.
As we see the benefit of personalization in whether that's a sales call or whether that's the ability to produce a small number of business cards.
So tell us a little bit about how Blurb fits in, because like you mentioned, like you said before, you've always been sort of a white label behind the scenes company. Industry people know who RPI is. And in the last, few years, you've acquired Color Centric, which owned the Peekaboo brand, but you're really not known as being in front of the end user kind of company, and Blurb is. So how does Blurb fit in?
As I mentioned, a big part of Blurb's user base is based as a creative professional. So,
Sure.
And they have one of the best, I guess now we do have one of the best rendering engines and e-commerce platforms out there. So we actually work with Blurb already on many of the private label applications. We, for example, service 23andMe in the DNA market and producing a personalized product for them.
Sure.
So we are not moving away from our private label and servicing our customers in any way, shape, or form. And having access to that creative professional and helping drive personalization into their everyday life and especially around the publishing and especially around the publishing space, made perfect sense for us as the next step in our building of a personalization platform that spans the services from everything from a creative builder all the way through logistics that deliver a personalized product to your home or business in just a few days. So it was a natural extension for us, and also we've known them for, as I mentioned, since their founding. So the ability to bring them in as part of the family was a very strategic opportunity that we couldn't pass up.
And from a geographic standpoint, they're not far away, right?
They are not far away, and very similar cultures as well. So we've grown up together. So it just made sense for us to move in together, as you might say.
So from what you've said, it sounds to me like it's a part of a strategy, a technology strategy as well. Because like you said, they had some rendering technology that you were interested in, and also it appears that the management of Blurb is staying along, so you're going to get some expertise in that area as well.
Exactly. So very much an additional technology service add-on to our existing add-on services of PrinterNet, which we acquired as part of the SoftPrint acquisition. which allows us to, add workflow, mass customization workflows into various print facilities uh, from large big box retailers to print facilities all over the world. Add that to Peekaboo, which is very focused on private label applications. So we're expanding our private label today. That runs Office Depot photo site, for example. And now we're adding in MagCloud and Blurb. So access to that creative professional and our ability to utilize the services that they excel in
Right.
to enable brands, quite frankly, to step into this world of personalization, whether that's for brand loyalty applications, or whether that is for increased conversion, or whether that's for personal usage.
So there's been some consolidation in the industry in the last year, as if I'm sure you've noticed, right? So
yes, to say the least.
yes, yeah, and it's not only in the photo personalization space, but it's also generally in printing, right? You had Quad and LSC trying to get together, and that kind of fell through. And you've had other people. Is this being driven by technology, because it's become so efficient now that there's so much capacity in the industry now that it kind of lends itself to that? Or is it because the market isn't growing as much and so that's driving it? Or is it because, from my standpoint, I'm seeing a lot of venture capital kind of coming into play now, kind of initiating some of these activities?
Well, I can share my perspective on it.
That's why you're here.
There's definitely consolidation in the marketplace, and I think it will accelerate. And I think there's several factors. The entire print market is in a transition right now as a combination of things happen. Advances in technology are certainly a driver. Companies who are able to make the investments in driving new technologies, especially as more and more of the printed product that is distributed is being done digitally, that technology requires a sizable investment. And for a smaller print facility that is already struggling, or potentially looking at how do I finance the next round of technology, and how do I actually implement it into my existing processes? It's a sizable barrier for many of the smaller groups to keep up in that space. I think another area is the print industry in general has not done a good job of presenting the exciting opportunities to a younger group of people, especially in the universities, and attracting a younger set. So you see quite a bit of an aging ownership structure with a lack of succession plan in many of the smaller companies, which creates a challenge as well. So you add to that with the ongoing market challenges, because the market is in such a transition. What you did 10 years ago is probably not going to be marketable today.
Or even 5 years ago.
Or even 5 years ago. As the expectation of personalization and at least customization and integration with digital media becomes more critical, it is a transformation that's happening inside the industry. Absolutely don't think it's going away. Actually, we see lots of growth opportunities, but it's no longer necessarily the mass produced primary channel. It's more of a secondary channel that's highly targeted. So I think you'll see a continuation of consolidation in the marketplace, as those that are able to adapt rapidly to changing market circumstances and make the investments to do that are able to grow and increase their profitability, and others, are going to need to find ways to monetize what their existing customer base is.
I am still amazed when I look at printing industry statistics, when I see how much printing is still done analog, right? With web presses and things like that. It's quite astounding, actually.
It is astounding. It's one of the world's largest industries, and that transformation, as analog continues to shrink and digital continues to grow. But digital has a long ways to go to catch up.
Yeah, it's just interesting because when you come from the photo world where the analog to digital conversion has more or less happened and happened a long time ago. Yes, there's some analog happening, but it's not nearly the share that it is in the printing world. And from the photo perspective, every image is unique, right? In the sense that they've always had runs of one, if you will, when you're making 4x6 prints or what have you. And now the printing industry is kind of catching up to that, where you can have a personalized item, basically a run of one item that's totally unique. So it's kind of interesting to see that happening in the marketplace. So
very much so, and the value of the printed product becomes much stronger. As digital media becomes more and more ubiquitous, high quality, high image printed piece becomes a higher value, and whether that is as a gift to memorialize a vacation, or whether or not that is a sales piece that helps you make a decision to actually convert into a sale. It equally works well as a tactile experience that helps burn that brand into your brain cells.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing when you look at some of the finishings and coatings and things like that can be applied now almost in a digital way, like with Scodix and things like that is now trickling down to amateur work where people can have a coding on their photo book that is unique. And it's just fascinating to watch this, how far personalization is going to go to kind of, as you say, add value to printed piece.
Exactly. Yes. No, it's and with a generation and upcoming generations that have an expectation of things being personalized to them.
Yeah. That's the table stakes now, right? Now, speaking of, you mentioned before your company culture. That's something I want to touch on, because as we've all been experiencing this year, there's a bit of a pandemic. And can you talk a little bit about how your company has responded to the pandemic? Because you've taken kind of a leadership role, at least in the printing industry, with some guidelines that you've shared of how your company has responded.
Yes. So RPI has been on a cultural journey for 10 years now, really focused on building a common vision, mission, and set of values, which turned out to also be a phenomenal basis for a change management platform. So, yes, when something unforeseen hit us, like in this case, COVID-19, my team was able to respond extremely quickly, and within days, we used CDC guidelines. We used our own medical expert input, and we built out a series of procedures and steps that we would take in order to protect our employees in every circumstance that we could come up with. As we did that, there were obviously lots of people in the industry that were all trying to figure out, how do I stay open as an essential business?
Right.
For those of us who were essential businesses, and how do I protect my employees so that they're safe?
Sure.
And I'm happy to say that, everything from screening everyone who came into the building, to limiting the number of people that came into our facilities, to responses to any kind of symptoms on the floor in production, and to our quarantine periods. All of those have been very effective in helping us to react quickly and keep our teams safe. So, today we have facilities that follow those procedures and keep our employees safe, just based on the CDC guidelines and following those in all of our locations, honestly.
So how were those protocols and those procedures developed? Was it a team approach? I mean, you've got multiple facilities, right? And so there's probably different physical configurations in all of those facilities. Was it a bottom-up sort of process, a cross-functional team process? How was that managed?
It was actually a cross-functional team process. So each of our facilities have general managers and then leaders for each of the functions. We quickly built teams, cross-functional teams, to address everything from signage to marking in production of keeping people 6 feet apart, from shutting down or limiting contact inside of the break rooms, to creating new sanitation stations every few feet within our facilities. All of those activities were coordinated between my facilities and the leaders and I'll just say the leaders inside of those organizations at every level. Were able to not only change their procedures, but do so in a way that made it sustainable and turned it into the new standard practice that we could carefully enforce. And today, it's in today's environment, we consider it just part of our safety efforts, and named it. It's the 6-foot culture. So we are working throughout our organization to just make it standard part of our life, that we create a 6-foot distance between ourselves and wear all the protective safety gear.
Yeah, I mean, it's not likely it's going to change anytime soon. Certainly not by the time the fourth quarter holiday season hits. So certainly, it's great. So you've done some webinars and things like that on it. Is that something people can check out somewhere?
Yeah, absolutely. You can access that on dscoop.org on our idea exchange. There's a recording of that webinar that's archived there.
And what kind of material was it? Was it more or less a how you did it sort of thing, so people could take away some learnings from that? Or is there like any materials they can download?
Yep, there was a combination of how we reacted, what the impact was, and then yes, there's a host of documents as part of that package that you can download and utilize in your own organization as well.
That's great. So it sounds to me like you're fairly optimistic, present circumstances notwithstanding, about the future of print.
Extremely, yes. I think that print communications and the ability for print to connect on an emotional level makes print an essential part of our communication structure. And I think the opportunities inside of this industry are massive for those that are able to adapt rapidly. So I'm quite bullish on the market and our opportunities in the market, though it's not the traditional project-based transactional print that we saw in the past.
Yeah, I think if we've learned anything about 2020 is that things change very rapidly, and permanently.
Yes, I would expect that, the things that we are doing now to adapt to this current situation, out of that, many of them will become standard procedures in the future. We don't expect the COVID pandemic to really return to normal until about a year from now, because it just takes time for the vaccines to become widely available and widely accepted.
Mm-hmm. And a lot
And
of it
even
has to
then,
do
there will
with,
be social change. There'll be social change just in people's behaviors as well.
right, and that's what I was just going to say. Even if magically a vaccine were to be available in the third or fourth quarter this year, there will still be some behavior changes that are still going to happen over that time. People, so it's like you said, this is going to be a long haul. This is going to be an interesting time.
Yep, and many of the things that we're doing now, we speak about this a lot on our teams. A lot of the things that we're doing now should help us in the future with any other flu outbreaks or normal disease outbreaks, as well as future pandemics as well. So many of the practices that we're implementing simply are best practices inside of an organization anyway. So
there really shouldn't be a downside to keeping your customers and your associates safe. There's really no downside to that.
Exactly.
Well, thank you, Rick, for your time today. I appreciate you speaking to me so soon after the acquisition. Hope things are going well and hope to catch up with you soon.
Thanks, Gary. Much appreciated. Talk soon.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Dead Pixel Society podcast. Read more great stories and sign up for the newsletter at www.thedeadpixelssociety.com.